Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the next part of our virtual discussions on digital cities, brought to you by Czech Infrastructure Association, British Embassy, Union of Towns and Municipalities of the Czech Republic, and Czech Investment Agency. Please feel free to ask questions during our debate. You can send it to zelenaměsta.cz either by email or using our website, where you can view this discussion. I'd like to welcome Mirek, Svítek, Professor and Dean of the Czech Technical University in Prague, and Petr Dovolil, Senior Consultant of PwC, who will facilitate today's debate for you. Gentlemen, thank you for being here with us. Also, I'd like to welcome Melissa Zanocco from Infrastructure Client Group, who will have a presentation, and Sarah Hayes from the Centre for Digital Build Britain from the United Kingdom. Ladies, welcome. My name is Tomáš Janeba. I'm the president of the Czech Infrastructure Association, and before I pass the floor on to Petr Dovolil, I'd like to sum up as follows. Our purpose is to inspire you, to provide tips from abroad, and the source of our inspiration today will be Great Britain. We've been promoting this digital transition leader for 5 years in the Czech Republic. We should have translated their standards 5 years ago, and we'd be much better off today, and also our costs would be much lower, but we still believe we can get inspired. Today we will have 3 interesting presentations. The first one will focus on the so-called flourishing systems and our vision for the built environment, recently finished in the UK. Then we shall hear about the national program of digital twins from the Centre for Digital Building in Britain, and a project climate resilience demonstrator, Credo. The third presentation will be about the Smart Evropská Avenue in Prague. Please have a very fruitful discussion. Petr, yours the floor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank Tomáš for organizing this very interesting and inspiring event. Also, it's my pleasure to welcome our colleagues from Britain. The topic that we will discuss today is very important. Cities have always been a source of innovation, but they also have consumed a lot of energy, and they form part of our solution of a climate change issue. And as we can see, there are not only black swans, but also a new source of possible optimization and better value in our life, and that's digital transition. The Czech Republic has focused on digital communication. It helped us during the COVID pandemics to continue with schooling, with communicating with each other. But the main part, the use of digital technology for infrastructure, is still ahead of us. It's a change that can help us improve the performance of our existing infrastructure. It can even substitute some substantial investment in the environment. It can make our life better. British solutions have always been very important for the whole world. We are very glad that the ambition in the 4th industrial revolution is still there in the UK. I've been familiar with the recent developments in the UK, and I believe it's a huge source of inspiration for the Czech Republic. And it's my great pleasure to welcome Melissa Zanocco, head of the Infrastructure Client Group an organization that backed up a vision for the built environment using data and data value for better life. She will talk about flourishing systems. It's related to the thoughts by Aristotle, who said that our physical environment should be to help develop our human potential in every possible way. So, Melissa, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to present to you today. I'm really looking forward to this presentation and the panel session afterwards. So with my presentation, I'm going to take you on a journey that we have been on in the UK to transform the built environment. And there are many starting points, but this particular journey started with the publication of Flourishing Systems. And this was a collaboration between 40 industry leaders, mainly in the infrastructure sector. And it advocated a very simple but radical vision for infrastructure, that it should be a platform for human flourishing with people and systems at its heart. So it has 4 key areas, as you can see. So people, we should focus on outcomes for people as the starting and end point of all of our efforts in the infrastructure. And connections and interconnections, to recognise that what we have now built in infrastructure is intimately interconnected, so we should manage it that way. Number 3, we must sustain our infrastructure systems in order to continue supporting society, but they are not yet sustainable. And that is something that we need to address. Our infrastructure systems need to last for as long as we want society to be supported, which is basically forever. And number 4 is digitalisation, seeing how we can unlock immense value for people through recognising the value of digital assets, bringing the digital and the physical together in what we call cyber-physical systems. And it's important that we recognise just how interconnected our infrastructure is. If we look within one sector, like transport, and we consider the connections between roads and rail and air, you can see that just transport itself is a complex interconnected system. But then we need to overlay on that the energy system, and they're becoming even more connected with, for example, things like electric vehicles. And then we have all kinds of social infrastructure, whether that's hospitals, prisons and schools, or residential, commercial or industrial buildings, all of which rely on the economic infrastructure that serves them. And then all of those are embedded in the natural environment. So what I'm describing is a complex, interconnected system of systems. But what I've also described also applies equally to a city. You could substitute built environment with cities or place. So a very important statistic in the UK is that we have already built 99.5% of the infrastructure that we need. And then each year, all we do is just add 0.5% to it. Now that 0.5% is incredibly significant. It is the entire construction industry, and it does add something like 8% to GDP. So it is hugely important, but it's not the whole. So what we need to start doing is seeing what we've already built so that we can get more out of what we've already got. And then we start to see that infrastructure projects are actually just interventions on this overall system, rather than being siloed standalone projects. So cyber-physical systems are created when we bring together digital assets with physical assets. And what do I mean by digital assets? I mean things like data, information, algorithms. And we need to actually manage them in the same way that we manage our physical assets. And all of this adds up to the vision for a digital built Britain. I'll just pause so you can look at that on the screen. However, when COVID hit, we realised that we needed something to sit even above this, and that all the other roadmaps and strategies and action plans that were coming and emerging from the industry. And there were lots of excellent initiatives, but no one had actually articulated the end destination. So the built environment came together as a whole to publish our vision for the built environment. And the idea is that we all own and adopt our vision and align our own initiatives and activities to help achieve it. So we took flourishing systems as the starting point, but it grew from being about infrastructure to encompassing all of the built environment. And we only included here the logos of the cross-industry bodies, but there were more than 75 industry leaders who contributed to shaping the vision. And that covers things from like lawyers, insurers, investors, as well as the more traditional construction and infrastructure representatives from across the whole of the built environment this time. And those contributions could have been through one-to-one interviews, workshops, or via feedback. And this is the vision, and I'm actually going to read it out. So our vision is for a built environment whose explicit purpose is to enable people and nature to flourish together for generations. And it's only when we shift from thinking our focus from creating the built environment to the outcomes that are enabled by it that people and nature can thrive together. And the built and natural environments are complex and interconnected systems that are essential for our well-being. And improving outcomes for people and nature depends on the services that these systems provide and on coordinating the built environment as a whole, not just as individual parts. So you can see that it also moved to a stronger emphasis on nature, which was in flourishing systems, but which we almost took too much for granted. And the rest of the slides are now focused around these headings of outcomes, systems, and services. And then at the end, there's the enablers that we now have at our disposal that mean for the first time in history, we can make this vision a reality. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're implementing it as well. So as I said, this was during the COVID pandemic, which illustrated that systemic challenges cannot be solved in silos, and we cannot just build our way out of the problem, particularly when building was the problem in the first place. So the first key principle of the vision is that achieving better outcomes for people and nature must be the focus of the existing built environment and of its future development. And this means recognising that the use of the existing built environment is of primary importance, and that it's only supported by the other things you can see on the little circle, like the operation, the maintenance, the planning, design, construction, and reuse. So what we're saying is, we don't need a bridge. We need to get from A to B. We therefore need to ensure that people and communities and cities have a say in the desired outcome. And it also means that we can therefore first consider how to get the outcome from what already exists and only build something new if it's found to be the best option, and ensure that it's integrated into the overall system. The development of the built environment must take place within a context where outcomes are aligned from top to bottom, from global and national strategic priorities through to local requirements to investment decisions for individual interventions. And this is where cities play such an important role. They sit at that local community level, bringing everything together. In the same way that the janitor at NASA was helping to put an astronaut on the moon, this line of sight can provide a real sense of purpose for everyone who works in the built environment. And I believe that it can also help to inspire the next generation into the industry as they understand the difference that their individual contribution can make. Here you can see another important build from Flourishing Systems is that the system of systems has grown to incorporate the cyber-physical systems as things like digital twins become an integral part of how we manage the built environment. And we need to shift towards consciously making a positive environmental impact with everything that we do in the built environment, including integrating regenerative design, ecosystem services, natural infrastructure, and nature-based solutions. So this is the whole vision in one diagram. It's the built systems, not individual projects or assets, which provide the shelter, the mobility, the sanitation, and the cities on which we rely. And if we look at the built environment in this way, then we need to seek the feedback from the users of the services or of the city to help enhance them and shape interventions that improve the whole system, as other industries do automatically. And we also therefore need metrics for the performance of the built environment, not just for the productivity of adding to it. Now, for the first time in our history, we have the tools and technology to work together to make this vision a reality and to manage the built environment in a way that addresses the biggest challenges of our time, from climate change to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this slide is about the need for greater integration. This is about applying the fourth industrial revolution to infrastructure. And you'll see that in digital twins, connected digital twins are included. And finally, digital transformation, which includes effective information management. And what do I mean by that? It's basically ensuring that the right people have the right information at the right time to make better decisions, leading to these better outcomes that I've been talking about. And what I'll say about all of those three slides that I just ran through very quickly is what they're actually about is people and culture and behaviour change more than anything else. So how are we going to make the vision a reality? So this is a backcasting diagram, and I'm going to cover the policy part in my next few slides, as it's already been translated into policy. The strategy part I will cover when I talk about the Construction Leadership Council and the Infrastructure Client Group. But the action part is actually down to you and me. So we want this to be our vision and for you to feel that you own it and have responsibility for making it happen. So this is the built environment model, and it comes from Transforming Infrastructure Performance Roadmap to 2030, which is from the Infrastructure and Projects Authority Government Department in the UK, or TIP as it's known. And that was published in September 2021. And as you can see in the diagram, it reflects the vision, and that is intentional, as government and industry worked really closely to create it. And TIP contains a roadmap for how to achieve the vision, which includes practical steps in the next 2 years, as well as more kind of aspirational goals for the next 10 years. And the key point about TIP is that it's a change programme rather than a policy document or a set of guidance. And the change programme is in partnership with industry and academia. So it's not just a standalone government initiative. And it's focusing on infrastructure performance and sees digital and data as a key enabler. So I'm now going to explain how it all fits together and why I've particularly picked out the Construction Leadership Council and the Infrastructure Client Group, as there are obviously many other stakeholders involved. So transformation comes about because of a combination of things. It's not just one thing or one stakeholder that can do it on their own. However, the clients are a key lever to drive change, as where they lead, their supplier ecosystem needs to follow. So up until this point, I've been talking about the whole of the built environment. From here onwards, I'm going to focus on infrastructure again, but the visual could be adopted for any part of the other sectors, and it would still apply. And the Construction Leadership Council and TIP does apply to the whole of the built environment. So this shows the main government departments that interact with the economic infrastructure clients. And Treasury published the National Infrastructure Strategy, and the Cabinet Office published Construction Playbook, you can see in the top left-hand corner. And then Industry published Our Vision for the Built Environment, and IPA published TIP in 2021. And TIP contains the roadmap to make all of those others happen. And the Government Construction Board, as you can see in top in the centre, is responsible for the TIP change programme, and it's working across the government departments. What you can see on this slide is the themes and the working groups and the initiatives of the three main stakeholders the Government Construction Board, the Infrastructure Client Group, and the Construction Leadership Council. And I hope it's obvious that they all align. So the CLC is made up of cross-industry bodies who represent different sectors in the construction industry, including the main trade bodies. And at the height of the crisis, it was meeting daily, but it now meets once a week for what I like to call an industry team meeting. And it created a roadmap to recovery, and it's split into the 4 sectors that you can see on the left-hand side in the horizontals, and then it has cross-cutting themes going down the verticals. The Infrastructure Client Group is made up of the leading economic infrastructure clients in the UK and focuses on the things that only clients need to lead on and which will have the biggest transformational impact. And it tries to benchmark across its members and their supplier ecosystem in each of its areas so we can measure consistently. And it shares best practice and helps its members to adopt it, again in a consistent manner so that it benefits the entire supplier ecosystem. And you can see the outcomes they're aiming for in the top right-hand corner and the initiatives around the left-hand side. And finally, this shows how the 3 organisations fit together at an initiative level. So you can see there is agreement around the key areas that drive industry transformation and that they're all reliant on each other. So we need to deliver differently using new collaborative enterprise models like ICG's Project 13, which is focused on outcomes and considers optimising or modifying existing infrastructure before building something new. The digital and the data enables that, but equally you can't take full advantage of digital opportunities if you don't deliver differently. And we can't achieve our net zero targets if we don't build less and smarter and take advantage of digital. And all of those 3 improve productivity. But none of this can happen unless we have people with the right skills and tools. So it feels like that for the first time, we have all stakeholders at all levels aligned around the same vision, focusing and agreed on the same things, and now moving into the implementation phase and working together to accelerate the transformation. So thank you very much for allowing me to share the journey that we've been on, and I'm really looking forward to the panel discussion later.
Thank you, Melissa, for this amazing and inspiring presentation. To me, it shows that when a vision is created by the public and private sectors, if a very strong national team is created that is able to distribute roles, and what's the best is the fact that you are working on it day by day, that every activity is coordinated, everyone is aware that it's a source of their future prosperity, and it's a message for us. Mirek, Svítek will talk about it later. We have pilot projects, but what we do not have is the institutional framework, the clear vision, the willingness and effort by all partners to get involved. The Czech infrastructure of association must be an equivalent of one of the organizations that you mentioned, and perhaps it can play such a role, hopefully, one day. Now let us proceed to the next presentation by Sarah Hayes. I'd like to thank Sarah for being with us at this event, and Sarah will focus on the Centre for Digital Britain and the National Digital Twin Programme in the UK. She'll also speak about Credo. It's a project of digital twins for the climate change. Let me say a few words on the European context. UK is no longer part of the EU. The EU has a flagship project called Destination Earth. By 2030, it should create a digital twin of the entire planet, and it should focus on the area of adaptation and to climate change. So I look forward to that presentation. A few words about Sarah. Sarah is an economist head author of a major study for the National Infrastructural Commission in Great Britain concerning public well-being. She is now working as an independent consultant, and she's in charge of the pilot project CREDO, the Climate Resilience Demonstrator project. At the same time, she is involved in many other areas, water management, infrastructure. She is a member of many task forces. Sarah?
Hello, I'm Sarah Hayes, and I work with the Centre for Digital Built Britain and the National Digital Twin Programme in the UK. And I'm going to talk about our climate resilience demonstrator project today, CREDO. And CREDO is the pilot project for the National Digital Twin Programme. So before I get into the detail on CREDO, the Climate Resilience Demonstrator Project, I think it's helpful to give some background on the National Digital Twin Programme, which is, as I said, is run out of the Centre for Digital Built Britain, which is a partnership between government and Cambridge University. So it all started with a report, Data for the Public Good. And I like talking about this report because I led the development of this report when I was working at the National Infrastructure Commission. And it's a report about the benefits of sharing data. So we found in the production of this report and the research that we carried out that organisations across infrastructure recognise that there are benefits from sharing data within organisations and across organisations. And it's probably worth mentioning that the National Infrastructure Commission in the UK cover economic infrastructure. So it's telecoms, energy, water, transport, waste and flood defence. So we worked with stakeholders across these sectors to understand what the barriers to sharing data are. And we find that there's a difficulty here in that data is in different formats, there are different approaches, there's sort of a cultural reluctance sometimes to share data. And so we recommended in this report that there needs to be an information management framework to enable the sharing of data securely across organisations and across sectors, so that there is a common framework that people can work towards to be able to share data in a secure way. We also set out the vision for a national digital twin in this report, which is an ecosystem of connected digital twins. And we said in this report that this shouldn't be just driven by the private sector or the public sector, that actually it really needs to be driven by government and industry working together with academia to take this forward. So what is a digital twin? A digital twin is a digital representation of something physical. And that something physical, so it could be an EV charging point or electric vehicle charging network. So it could be something that's in the past, the present, or the future. But what's important here is you've got some data connection between the physical object and the digital object. And the idea is that you can use the digital twin, the digital model, to help you make better decisions that will then have an impact on the physical world. In the National Digital Twin Programme, we use a lot of systems thinking. So we see that everything is interconnected. So economic infrastructure interconnected with social infrastructure and the natural environment. And it's important to see everything around us as not in a siloed way, in a separate fashion, but actually as part of an overall system that we're living within a system of systems. And so the National Digital Twin is not one great big model of everything. It is an ecosystem of connected digital twins. So it's a many connected digital twins. And because we in the future there will be an information management framework, it's possible to be able to share data in a secure way across these digital twins, across these digital models. And we see this as part of the cyber-physical infrastructure. So in a future where everything is interconnected, so digital twins alongside AI and robotics and the Internet of Things. So that's the background. So CREDO, the Climate Resilience Demonstrator Project, is the pilot project for the National Digital Twin Programme. It's to show how we can start to develop out this ecosystem of connected digital twins, because of course it's a very grand concept, the idea of a national digital twin. So you really have to start somewhere. You have to start small to build it out. And what we have here really is a long-term vision over the next 20, 30 years. So there are two core purposes to CREDO. One is around climate change, and that is to show that we can use connected digital twins to help us tackle climate change, both on the adaptation side and also on the mitigation side. The other core purpose to CREDO is to start to develop out this information management framework, the set of standards and practices for sharing data across sectors, and to show that we can connect data sets across organisations in a principled and scalable way. So CREDO itself is a climate change adaptation digital twin. So we bring together data across energy, water and telecoms networks. We've been working with Anglian Water, BT and UK Power Networks, who have brought their people and their data to the project to enable us to see what the impact of future flood scenarios would be across the infrastructure system. So what we do is we combine the asset data with flood data concerning future flooding scenarios, and we put that into a digital twin to understand what the impact of future flood scenarios would be across the infrastructure system. So as you can see here on the right, that data and what I'm presenting to you here is synthetic data. So this is data which has been synthetically generated from the real data, because of course data about infrastructure and critical national infrastructure needs to be held confidentially. It is not something that you can share publicly. So what we found really useful in the course of this project is the generation of synthetic data so that we can tell the story about what we're doing here, and it really helps us sort of see what's going on here. So the synthetic data shows, it represents relationships in the data that you would find in the real data. So what you can see here on the right is a set of key infrastructure assets in yellow that have many other assets that are dependent on them. So you can see the blue areas which highlight where there is flooding. So the digital twin helps you see where there is flooding, which assets are getting wet, and at what point do those assets fail because they are wet. It then takes the impact of those wet assets and propagates it across the whole system. So you will see that it down in the areas at the bottom which are dry, they are out of service because they are interconnected to assets that have been flooded. So what we're doing here really is showing what the system impact is across the whole infrastructure system. And this really helps us start to think about two questions. How can we better prepare for future flood scenarios caused by climate change? So how can we adapt? And what are the interventions that we might make in order to better protect the infrastructure system in advance of future flooding situations? Or how can we better respond? So if we are faced with an emergency flood situation, how can we better respond and coordinate our response across the infrastructure networks? So it really helps us start to think about these big questions of how do we increase system resilience and adapt to climate change. We made a film to tell the story of why we're doing this, because we find obviously digital twins can be fairly technical, not accessible always to a wide audience. And we found that actually it'd be really helpful to communicate this through a film. So I would recommend you have a look at the Digital Twin Hub I'll be able to share a link in the chat later on. It's a 6-minute film, and the point here is to show that climate change, actually the effects of climate change can be personal and can have real impact. But if we collaborate through connected digital twins, we can work towards tackling climate change and to be able to adapt to future climate change. So we also made an app so that we could tell the story about what the impact of a flooding scenario would be in a city. So here you can see Sumford City. It's a fictional city that we've created with fictional data, even before we started the technical work, so that we'd be able to communicate what we're doing within this tool. So in the app, which is on the Digital Twin Hub, what you can do is have a look, and what it shows you is what the impact of a future flood scenario would be and how all these assets go out of service as a result of the flood. So this fictional Sumford City is left in a really bad state at the end of this particular storm Ruby. And then the user is faced with the question, what could you do in advance to protect the city? So I'll come back to that a little bit later on. What we've moved on towards is to using the synthetic data to develop a visualization. And this visualization is available for you to use on the Digital Twin Hub. And what you can do is you can tick the assets on the left that you want to see, you can choose your particular flooding scenario, and you can look at what the progress of the flood is and at which point assets go out of service, and you can look at the dashboard on the right to see more information about that particular asset and what it's connected to. So this is just a way of really bringing it to life about what the tool can do. And that's where we've got to at the moment, is pulling this data together so that you can see what the impact of a flood would be and what the connections are across the different infrastructure sectors. What we would like to do next in future phases of Credo is start to look at the interventions that you could make to protect the city from this kind of flooding scenario. And in doing that, we find that a siloed view of infrastructure really isn't helpful. So if you only have information about the power network in front of you, you really can't properly plan for resilience, because the power network, as we know, is absolutely key, but it also relies upon communications. And what you can't see in this particular picture here is how communications is impacted by the flood or by other power assets failing and then rendering those communications assets out of service. So we don't know from just looking at this picture that the primary substation at the base of the map actually loses communications in the flooding scenario that we looked at just now. And you also can't see what's happening with the water network. You can't understand from this picture how many people would be losing water supply as a result of this flood. So you really need a joined up view of all the infrastructure assets to be able to really understand what the impact of future flooding scenarios would be. You really need a bird's eye view, and that's sometimes how I would describe a digital twin. Is it really, if you're thinking about a digital twin of a city, you're really thinking about giving planners a bird's eye view of that city, so that you can understand the criticality of assets and the infrastructure interdependencies. So here you can see with those yellow assets that I talked about before that are highlighted, you can see here how many dependencies that they have, that they are particularly key assets because they've got a lot of other assets depending upon them. So it really does help you start to think about those questions, how to prepare and how to respond. And in the future, I think what would be interesting is the idea of being able to develop a resilience score across infrastructure in particular. So you can imagine a dashboard on the left here, which would tell you in this particular flooding scenario, you've got a high number of power outages, telecom outages, water outages. There's a large number of vulnerable people who are affected by this. And it could show you also that there's disruption at the hospital. So overall, there's a low level of resilience in this particular area of the city. So we are currently undertaking some work to understand what the benefits of Credo will be in the future. And those benefits really accrue on the resilience side of things and on the information management side of things. And they will accrue to asset operators, to customers, and to wider society. And we'll be publishing a report on the DT Hub setting this out in a couple of weeks' time. So back to this idea of the resilience score, what we've got in the app is so what are the possible interventions you might take to increase the resilience of this particular city. So we've talked about the power substation, power network being particularly important. One of the quite serious options here is that you could relocate the power substation outside of the flood zone. And here the digital twin shows you what would be the impact of doing that. So if you relocate it outside of the flood zone, it has a beneficial impact across the whole system, in that if there were this kind of flood, then you would minimize the extent of power loss. People would still have communications across most areas, they would minimize the disruption, and people would still have running water, and you're minimizing the disruption at the hospital. So here you could see that actually this would give the city a fairly high level of resilience to future flooding scenarios. But of course, it's a particularly expensive thing to relocate a primary substation. So what you want to do is to look at the number of other options. So we set out some examples in the app, but that's the idea of a future Credo tool, is that you could look at the many interventions to see which is the best intervention for your city. So there is always a trade-off between cost. Moving a primary substation is going to be expensive if it gives you but it does give you a high level of resilience. So each city would need to think about what is the level of resilience that our residents, our citizens, are willing to pay for. And I think this starts to help us think about a level of a measure of system resilience. So rather than thinking about power resilience or water network resilience or telecoms resilience, it helps us start to think about this from a system point of view. What is the overall level of resilience that we want across the city? So that we might find that all telecoms and water and power networks invest in one primary substation, perhaps, to increase the resilience of the whole city. So that's sort of the example of where we're getting to with Credo and where we want to go in the future. This is just to give you an idea of the nuts and bolts behind the scenes. So this is the Credo connected digital twin, all the different parts to it. So there's a lot more information about this and how all the data has been brought together through a knowledge graph approach on the DT Hub. And there are many different parts to the Credo project. It isn't just a technical project. We've had to work on legal agreements, a data license to make sure that we can share data in a very confidential way. We have economists working on looking at the benefits. We have information management specialists. We have researchers working with universities. We have domain specialists and climate specialists, and people on the creative side who've helped us develop the film and the app. So it really is a project that has spanned many different skill sets and many different organizations. So you can see here there are organizations from academia, from government, and from industry. It really is a collaborative effort across government, academia, and industry. And I really just wanted to show here the different range of skills that we've had in this particular phase of Credo, which has just run for a year. So it's been running from April 2021 to the end of this March, and we're looking to take it forward from April onwards in a number of future phases. But that really is to show it isn't just a case of let's get a bunch of data scientists together. There are a whole range of skills that you need to bring together to be able to develop a digital twin. There are a number of recommendations coming out of this work, so lots of reports that have been published on the Digital Twin Hub. Maybe I'll just pick out a few very quickly now. So the first one is that Shared data can highlight anomalies. So just by bringing together that data, you can see mistakes and errors in the data, but it can also offer immediate insight. So just by seeing the linkages between the networks, it shows you the interdependencies. On the information management side of things, we find that ontologies help with scaling up, and knowledge graphs can support ontologies. And also we find, so going to the Gemini principles, which are published on the Digital Twin Hub, purpose, having a clear purpose for your digital twin is essential. Being able to have a specific use case is really important to developing a successful digital twin that is useful, and bringing everyone together around that purpose so that everyone collaborates to make it happen is important. So the number of directions that we want to take Credo in the future, not going to go into that too much right now, but it's really to think about how we would bring in live data, how we'd bring in roads, perhaps think about other factors like wind and other use cases like extreme heat being another future climate scenario that we need to think about, and being able to add in further complexity and going to a wider geographical area of coverage, and also thinking about resilience metrics. So there are a number of reports that have been published on the Digital Twin Hub. I would encourage you to go and have a look at that after the session today. There's also the visualization I've mentioned and a template data license, which you could use to kick off the discussions between a number of organizations. So I really want to leave you with that question. Could you create your own Credo, your own version of Credo, your own digital twin? I really hope so, and I do hope that the resources that we're publishing on the DT Hub will be useful to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for a very practical example of how to comprehensively approach digital twins in a built-up environment. I think that the Credo shows where to start, that we can start with some pilot projects, and it also illustrates the systemic approach applied in the UK. The value of data is of key importance. Our physical environment changes, and climate change may introduce more changes, so we need to protect ourselves. Having data and being able to get knowledge from this data will help us to better protect our environment and to respond also to emergencies. We just read in the news that there was a tornado in New Orleans today, so this is an example of risks to which we needed to be able to respond, and this will be important for everyone, for owners, for investors, for the finance sector, and also for the citizens. In able to manage something, we need also to measure, and digital twins give us a tool to approach these issues systematically on a systemic level. So it allows us also to predict and act proactively, be prepared. So what it also shows us is that the physical risks, this is where the data provide the highest value, and this is also why the European Commission focuses on this area. It also shows that the new approach to cyber physical system and investments into cyber physical systems are important, and it also, when having a digital twin, sometimes we can also use a digital twin instead of some physical assets. Thank you very much. I'm sure we will come back to that during the discussion, and I would like to introduce the next presentation by my colleague, Professor Svítek, who is a professor at the Faculty of Transportation Sciences at the Czech Institute of Informatics and the Czech Technical University. He is also a guest professor at the Texas University in El Paso. He is a member of a number of expert commissions. He was the first president president of Czech Smart City Cluster, and he is someone who has a very wide area of interest. He's also a good painter. He is a good player on accordion. So you can check this on YouTube, because he's not only an expert in his field of specialization, but he knows a lot of other things. So I pass the floor to you, and I would just like to say that the Czech Republic also has some pilot projects in the area of digital twins, and one of such project is Smart Evropská project, which is a digital twin focusing on transportation. It shows the way on which the Czech Republic might set, and I would also like to explain that the Czech Republic, in some aspects, digitization aspect is at the lead front in Europe, such as artificial intelligence. What we are lacking is building the links. So I will now pass the floor to Mirek. I would like to, in my presentation, present the project of a digital testing ground called Smart Evropská Avenue. The purpose of this project this project was developed at the National Center of Competence at the Czech Technology Agency. We created an interdisciplinary team representing different areas such as power networks, smart buildings, environmental modeling, and similar. The idea of Smart Evropská project has been supported by a project from the Czech Technology Agency, and I am responsible as a coordinator for this project. I was asked to do that by the mayor of Prague 6, where this project is implemented. In this part of the presentation, I would like to describe the concept that we used. Evropská Avenue and this project is interesting for a number of reasons. The Evropská Avenue starts with a square, with a round square, which is connected to Blanka road tunnel, and this is a very important transportation hub. Then the project also covers Bořislavka station, where there is a new commercial center built. Then it includes also Veleslavin railway station, which is a mobility hub for transfer to the airport, and the airport is actually located at the other side of this project area. As part of the project, we try not to look at this testing ground not only from the transportation perspective, but we also focus on the neighboring areas, and we focus on urban development, transportation, power systems, and environmental impacts. You can get more information about this project at the website that is shown at the bottom of this slide. As I mentioned, the part of the project is also the Veleslavin railway station, which is a mobility hub. I had an opportunity to work on a study for the railway infrastructure management about smart railways stations, and also the European Commission supports what is called smart neighborhoods, and railway station. Smart railway station is one of examples where smart technologies can be used, where we can connect a smart railway station with the transportation system, with the urban zone around, and in case of this railway station, this will be a transfer hub, and we expect that it would provide a lot of information and other services to the people arriving from the airport. As I mentioned, the smart airport is also a part of the Smart Evropská project, and we try to include also the airport into the smart district or smart city. So this means that the information about flights and other sources of data available to the airport can be available on the city's data platform, and on the other hand the city data platform can also provide information to the airport, and this will establish an informational link, and we will be able to provide services to the commuters about flights, about changes in flights, etc. So also as part of the Smart Evropská project, we try to also integrate the airport into the concept of a smart city. The Smart Evropská project is based on a digital twin. Digital twin is something that integrates physical and cybernetical assets. We collect data from various sources, from sensors, cameras, mobile phones. We can use floating car data systems where such as V2V communication or vehicle-to-vehicle communication or vehicle-to-infrastructure communication. All this data, all this information can then be used to get knowledge, and the knowledge is obtained based on modeling. When I have some data, I can model and get some knowledge and information from this. And modeling and simulation can tell us what happens if, for instance, I close a railway station, or what happens if I close a metro station. And for this we have some tools that we can use for modeling in transportation. This is, for instance, Sumo. For environment modeling we have Palm and other simulation and modeling tools. If we have a well-built model and simulation is verified, then we can predict what would happen in case of different scenarios. And for predictions, we can use artificial intelligence and decision-making algorithms. The result that we obtain this way can be visualized using virtual and augmented reality tools. So if we look at the digital architecture of the Smart Evropská project, we can distinguish between several layers. The first bottom layer is the basic digital maps. The second layer is the collection of data. The third layer is ontology layer that focuses on knowledge models for the given area. Here we can use intelligence systems, artificial intelligence, and at the top layer we have key performance indicators, which are indicators that I want to achieve. On the right hand side you can see data that we can collect using environmental and traffic sensors. These are data about emissions, data from VOT, and all of this IoT, and all this data are then processed and used for managing traffic or for creating environmental simulations. And at the top layer then we have traffic management or mobility management or environmental protection. If we look at the digital twin, then a transportation system can be seen as consisting of three layers. Physical transport layer, including transport infrastructure, means of transport, and passengers and cargo. The second layer is the energy and environment layer. It includes energy resources for transport, energy infrastructure, and also potential emissions or impacts of the transport on the environment. The third layer is information and control layer, and this uses intelligent systems for improving the services and for improving the mobility of the passengers and logistics. This is an example of a digital twin and modeling. This video illustrates the winning proposal for a redesign of this square. At the center there should be a park, and the tram traffic routes are relocated to the left side, and also some pedestrian crossings are redesigned and relocated. This design was prepared using simulation tools, and simulation tools allow us to assess many different options and their benefits, including impacts on the environment. This illustrates environmental modeling in our project. This environmental modeling is done by the Computer Science Institute at the Academy of Sciences. This shows the pollution at the square in the course of time. This shows the amount of nanoparticles, and you can see that in the afternoon, when the traffic is heavier during peak hours, the concentration of nanoparticles increases. So we are able to model for all these areas, and we can model different solution options. So as part of our project, by the Competence Center, we developed a software that combines traffic modeling with smart building models and environmental models, and it combines them with data for various platforms such as Bohemio platform, and based on these simulation and modeling tools we are able to develop scenarios. If what scenarios? So we modeled, for instance, a situation during COVID. We modeled what would happen if there is a new building built at this round square, or what would happen after a big shopping center at the Borislavka metro station is opened. We are able to present the results of these simulations in a virtual reality environment or in augmented reality environment. This is an example of this software. You can see it consists of 4 parts. The first part focusing on transport and traffic modeling. The other part focuses on environmental modeling such as temperature, nanoparticles, etc. The third part focuses on power systems, and the fourth part provides data about the layout of the urban area. We can also get information about the level of utilization of individual buildings and other types of data. And then we can use this software to simulate various scenarios and their impacts, as I already mentioned, such as development of a new building on this round square. For all of these scenarios, we can assess their impacts on both traffic, the environment, and other social and power aspects. This is a video that illustrates how virtual reality can be used to present the results of these simulations. The user uses virtual reality glasses and can view various layers overlaid on this virtual map. So all the scenarios that I mentioned, such as the traffic modeling, on environmental modeling, or building of a new building, all this can be visualized in this way. Here, for instance, we see how many people are at a given moment located in individual buildings. Of course, this is based on estimates. Estimates are made based on available data, but we can view or visualize even such kind of information by processing respective data sources. We also have some buildings that we analyzed as smart buildings. You can also see that you can see traffic there, and the advantage of this approach is that I can use a single uniform visualization environment, and I can assess all different models, compare synergies introduced by individual solutions. To conclude, I would like to mention a few international projects in which we participate or in which we plan to participate. Our PhD students use this system, so we have data available. And here, for instance, you see my PhD student trying to do traffic modeling and optimization using virtual reality. Again, this is the area around this round square. We use artificial intelligence algorithms to optimize also energy requirements of individual buildings, or we try to also simulate what would happen if some buildings at the square were fitted with solar panels. And I'm also happy that we signed a contract with Technical University in Berlin, which have similar projects as Smart Evropská. Again, this covers a stretch of a big road there between the University and Brno and the Brandenburg Gate, and our colleague in Berlin have a project that is called Be Intelli, and we would like to participate in this project. Through this collaboration, we would also like to focus on autonomous mobility, and we would like to test it also in Prague. We also have a double degree program with a Texas university in El Paso. Our students can again participate in this study program. We have also a shared laboratory, our technical university and the university in Texas. You can see it on the picture. It focuses on virtual and on augmented reality, and the results of these simulations are then presented on a 3D printed model. I would also like to use this opportunity to invite you to a Smart Cities Symposium in 2022 that will be held in May in Prague, and where a number of our colleagues from abroad will participate to present the results of their research focusing on smart cities. This event will take place with the participation of I3E, which is a prestigious organization. As part of the during conferences, we also try to present our results, the results of our project. So these are pictures showing how we presented the outputs from our visualization systems for our American colleagues. So I am happy that I had the opportunity to show you this project, the Smart Evropská project. This is a project based on collaboration, and the project is based on the idea to have a unified environment combining all types of data, and this will allow to create synergies and gradually develop a project that will illustrate how a smart district, smart city, smart street might look in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mirek, for your point of view, how we in the Czech Republic deal with the preparation of digital twins. It's good to see that we have something to build on, that there is a group of people who are engaged in this project. I'm glad that the Czech Technical University and Svitek is one of the European innovation hub. It will be part of the ecosystem of digital transition or digital development in Europe, and this gives us the opportunity to move from pilot projects to regular projects and then to scale solutions for particular cities. Thank you very much, Mirek. I'm also glad to hear that you cooperate with people from Germany, US universities, hopefully in the future also with Cambridge and the Center for Build Britain. So thank you. I'd like to conclude this part and I'd like to invite you to our panel discussion. We've got some 50 minutes to go through what we have heard, what we have prepared, what it means for us and what will come next. My first question is for Melissa. Melissa, you talked about a system-based approach in built environment. You've mentioned that it's already included in strategies by British government and our vision document. How is digitalization of infrastructure and better use of data reflected in the new British National Infrastructure Strategy from 2020? That's something that we in the Czech Republic do not have, and it moves your vision towards future. Am I correct?
Yes, well, we were very excited to have a national infrastructure strategy. So just the very existence was already a big step in the right direction. And then to have the construction playbook and the transforming infrastructure performance to actually create then a route map of how we could actually achieve the national infrastructure strategy was really appreciated by industry. There's sort of four main areas in the national infrastructure strategy, and I think the important thing to say is that digital is an enabler. So digital is not something that we should focus on, and technology isn't something we should focus on in itself. It's really what that does to enable the other things. And so really the digital side is underpinning the national infrastructure strategy. So it wants to boost growth and productivity across the UK, and that includes levelling up so that everyone has the same services and the same opportunities. And a lot of that will be based on digital opportunities. For example, Sarah spoke a lot about telecoms and things like broadband and ensuring that everyone everywhere has the same access. And then another one is the net zero emissions. And as I said in my presentation, really we're not going to achieve net zero unless we find new ways of doing things. And the digital, even things like modern methods of construction, all of those will underpin how we achieve net zero. And then another area in it is accelerating and improving delivery. And as I said, I talked about Project 13 in my presentation, but the way to accelerate is not to speed up the initial part of projects and to get, in the UK, we talk about people wanting to get the spades in the ground sooner. Whereas actually it's if you put more time at the start and invest more into the digital side, as we've been seeing today with the scenario planning and all the benefits that can give and getting it right the first time, then the rest of the project is actually accelerated after that. So I would say that digital actually underpins all of the things that the National Infrastructure Strategy is trying to achieve.
Thank you, Melissa, for your reply and your comment. It's very interesting to see your ecosystem in Great Britain. The Office for Infrastructure and Projects must play a very important role because it promotes systemic-based approach. And the cyber-physical approach has become a standard. If I want to build some infrastructure, I must start with thinking about the data to improve its performance. My next question goes to Sarah. Sarah, you've spoke about use of data and digital twins in Britain. How active are cities and municipalities in digitalization of their infrastructure and better use of data? What cities in Great Britain are digital champions?
Hi there. So I think in the UK, cities are very active in the use of, in trying to make better use of data. But I think we are very much at the beginning of the digitalization journey in terms of using data in the way that we envision with the concept of the national digital twin and an ecosystem of connected digital twins. That vision has been set as a long-term vision. So we're looking at a journey that goes over 10, 20, 30 years to get to a place where we really are using data in a way that really helps everyone flourish. And I think when you look at cities and local authorities, I think at the moment one of the key constraints is skills in terms of accelerating this journey. And getting the right skills in place, I think, depends a lot upon transformational leadership. So what we need is for the leaders to really understand the benefits of making better use of data and to embark upon this digitalization journey, so that the leaders sort of set the vision within an organization and for cities as a whole, so that they would then invest in getting the right skills in place, because you need a wide range of skills across a team to be able to get all the benefits out of data over time. So I really would sort of emphasize this is a long-term process here. You asked me about cities which are leading in this space, and it's always obvious to say London, but there are some good examples in London, but there are equally very good examples across the UK. And I think it really is, you find different examples anywhere. What we need to do is to join up these examples and share learning across different cities, because we don't need to keep reinventing the wheel if we share our learnings as we go. And I would just like to bring your attention to the DT Hub, and there are a number of case studies on the DT Hub. If I put the link in the chat, perhaps you could pass it on to the audience for me, because there are some really good examples there. And actually, it's not just cities in the UK; it's across the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm very, very glad that you've mentioned Data Hub. I am a member of that hub, and I know there is 1,000 plus members. Mirek is a member too, and I'm glad we can be part of that. It's an international community and great inspiration. You've mentioned skills. It's of the utmost importance. If we are to scale those solutions, we must have people who are willing and able to create solutions. And it's not just a small, team of people. Mirek, when it comes to Czech cities, are there any digital champions in the Czech Republic among cities? When it comes to digital transition, cities are highly interested. The Ministry for Regional Development has prepared a concept. Also, the Union and Towns of Municipalities created the Czech Smart City Cluster with many active members. I'd like to thank very much the Czech Infrastructure Association for helping us spread the word. and disseminate the information? Well, cities are different. I've been in this field for a very long time. I remember the city of Svítek coming up with the very first concept of this type in the Czech Republic. There is a very small town, Milevsko, that has already received many awards for digitalization. Prague, the capital city of Prague, is comparable to other cities in Europe. It has an ICT operator managing or administrating data platform and digital maps. So yes, there is lots of information, knowledge. What we do not have is the integrator. We need to integrate, merge all these things together. Even at universities, we can do many things. There is the Technical University in Brno, there's Technical University in Pilsen, in Ostrava. But what we are envious about is that you in Britain managed to merge all these sectors under one roof, and you were able to issue a guideline, in order to have a great result. It's very interesting, very inspiring. Thank you, Mirek. You are very eloquent. Let's move to the next set of questions concerning digital infrastructure maturity. Melissa, you've mentioned digital maturity in infrastructure among asset owners. Is there any tool used by British community to find information about digital maturity of asset owners in infrastructure? Are these data collected in any way? Are there any benchmarks available for you to see which way you are going?
Yes, actually, in the infrastructure client group, there is. So you mentioned at the beginning, I'm head of programs for the infrastructure client group, and it has a digital transformation task group. And that brings together about the chief data officers or their equivalents of the leading economic infrastructure clients in the UK. So that's for transport, for energy, for utilities, for nuclear, and for broadband. And about 4 years ago, we started to look at a way to measure in the same consistent form across all the clients their digital maturity. And that has grown over the 4 years. So in the first year, it was very much like an Excel spreadsheet. And there was a very small number of people within the organization who completed it. And it was the people who knew and understood about digital. So you can imagine that the results were quite positive. And what we've moved to is now actually having a survey that can be answered with yes/no answers in a very simple form, and that can be sent out more widely across the organisation. Because really, I think we're going to go on to talk about this, but really everyone needs to be digitally transformed in the organisation. So you need to know from your graduates and you need to know from your CEO as well, because it's not just the people that sit in whatever your digital team is, the IT department, the information department. So that way you can get a much broader view from across your organisation. But what they've said to us, what's more important is you can then compare yourself to your peers. And even more important, not just within your same sector. So it's not just water comparing with water, it can be water comparing with transport, etc. And so we're now up to our 4th year. We're about to publish our report from last year, from 2021. And I think what I would say is that we've seen a big jump from with COVID. That was actually an accelerator for digital. So there was quite a big jump from sort of 2019 to 2020. This year it's more leveled off, so it hasn't gone down, it hasn't gone up, it's kind of gone across. But what I think we're seeing as well is that a movement now from strategy, so I've spoken about vision before, vision and strategy into implementation. So we can see that the clients, a lot of them now have got that kind of overarching strategy in place and are actually moving into implementing it. And now we get into where Sarah was at, really. We're talking about that it's about the people and the skills. The thing that will hold it back will be the fact that the people that need to implement these strategies is everybody in the organisation. So it's bringing them on the journey, and that is obviously a longer process. Oh, and I should add before I go about the Construction Leadership Council. So because we're now involved with them, we can start to spread the survey out to other sectors, not just infrastructure. And the survey that we use was developed with us with Mott MacDonald, which is an international consultancy, and it's called the Smart Infrastructure Index. And actually you can go on, again, I can put a link to that, and you can actually go on and check your own maturity using their app on their website.
Melissa, thank you very much. I know Smart Infrastructure Index. I have been using it very much in my work for McDonald's. I would like to ask Mirek, do we have a tool like that cities, companies, asset managers could use to measure their current position? Because without knowing where I stand, I cannot imagine where I need to go. So are there any benchmarking data available that are collected for sectors or across sectors in the Czech Republic? Well, I have to say that there are no such benchmark data available, and there is not even a general methodology available how to approach digital maturity and how to assess it. And without knowing your target, you cannot really know that you are going astray. So I think that we have a lot to catch up. Okay, so this closes this topic. It's been interesting to see that actually we have tools. There are tools that are available, the data are there, so the problem is just how to use it, how to apply it to data. I would like to ask Sarah about digital twins. What is the current status of development of the information management framework on digital twins, and when will it be completed? How long has this development lasted today? How is the alignment with the current technical norms on infrastructure achieved during the preparation of this new digital twin newspeak?
I think one of the interesting points that we're trying to get across here is we're talking about digital, and we expect everything to be very fast with digital and to accelerate things. But I think one of the key messages we're getting across here is it takes time to really achieve the benefits of digitalization. And with the information management framework, that in itself is a long-term journey. And it's been described as a marathon rather than a sprint. And the recommendations for the information management framework were made at the end of 2017. And we're really still at the very early stages of developing the information management framework, so that there have been a few years of work to lay the foundations, looking at the higher level ontology, the top level ontologies, the foundation data model, starting to put the very basic foundations in place. And this is the framework itself is going to consist of both technical standards and social practices, social norms, the way that we share data. It's a whole landscape of information management practices, and the development of this takes time. So we really are looking at timescales in terms of the next 2, 5, 10 years, 15. It's a long-term process, because even when you have developed the technical standards and you've got consensus over technical standards, because of course, we're working across many stakeholders here, and so you're looking at consensus across not just one industry, but many industries. There's the question of adoption and people being ready to adopt common standards. And so that's why I think it's important to focus on alignment and taking everyone on the same journey and gaining the right kind of contribution to the development of the information management framework. It isn't just a case that you want to impose a framework on everyone. You really want everyone to be brought into the development of the framework. And I think this raises the international question, because in the UK, we are very focused on this, let's develop an information management framework for the UK, but of course, data sharing doesn't stop at borders. And that's why we've opened up the DT Hub to international, because I think it's important to collaborate with international partners in the development of an information management framework over time, so that we can all adopt common standards, a common framework, because if we all have different approaches to sharing data, then it's going to cost us more in the long run. So what we found in practice, as it takes time to develop out the information management framework, certain industries, certain firms are perhaps leaders in this space because they recognize the benefits of working with higher quality data. So they have started to think about how to clean data at source. So one of the principles of information management, or high quality information management, is to clean data at source. So if an organization works to improve the quality of data at source, then they can, it's not that they would just use it in the Credo example, but they would reuse it many times. So it's one investment to clean data, and then to reuse that data for any kind of purpose in the future. And of course, that in itself is a significant investment, and it takes time. But I think that's sort of one of the principles that we're trying to get out, is the preparation that that companies can make, that organizations can make to get themselves sort of ready for an information management framework and be part of that process, and part of the movement is a change movement really to improving the way that we share data in the future.
Thank you, Sarah, for your reply. It clearly shows that we are creating a completely new ecosystem, and as Noah had already said, that we've been through a number of revolutions, and now we are at the phase of a digital transformation, and this is really something that will take time. I read it at the Center for Digital Build-Up Britain, that they did a survey to investigate overlaps in terminology, and they need to do this investigation to grasp this topic across sectors consistently, and this shows that this is a huge task. I would also like to add that Europe, apart from the Green Deal, has also another flagship program, and this is Europe Ready for Digital Age, and this defines 9 areas on which we need to focus, and we see huge potential here, because some countries can benefit greatly from this transformation if they are able to grasp this opportunity. I would like to ask Mirek now whether we have some shared framework, some shared language that we can use, and is somebody working on this? Yes. The advantage of the Czech Republic is that it is quite active in the Industry 4.0 concept. Also at our center, we have a large group that focuses on this area, and our laboratory also very closely collaborate with German universities, and our approach to these ontologies, the use of artificial intelligence and Industry 4.0, this is all which we focus. But if I want to go back to our project, this is the project, the kind of projects on which we start to learn how to use these approaches. We learn also during the project that specialists in environment protection, in transport and in other areas all use different terminology, and this is very difficult to align between them. If we want to use artificial intelligence algorithms, these autonomous systems must use the same language, and if they do not use the same language, they are not able to collaborate. For people, it might be easier to talk to each other and understand each other, but for artificial intelligence, it is more difficult. So we need to define some common language, but definitely this is the new age that is coming, and not only in cities, but also in relation to industry. Thank you, Mirek. Now we are moving to the topic of skills and education. It was mentioned here several times that we need to develop people and skills, and I would like to ask Melissa about how do you see the importance of reform in skills and education, and what is the role of the Center for Digital Build-Up Britain in this respect, and how in practice cities develop people. Are there any upskilling programs available? Do you have some training programs, and what is prepared in this area in Great Britain for the future?
Yes, it's a really important question, because I think that the theme that's coming out this morning is that this is all about people. So we talk about information management as being the right people having the right information at the right time to make better decisions, leading to the better outcomes that we've been talking about today. So obviously people are at the heart of all of that. So yeah, in the UK, so if I sort of talk about the bodies that I've already talked about, so the Construction Leadership Council published in 2021 for the first time ever an industry skills plan for the UK construction industry. So we've never had that before, where there was sort of one plan that went across the whole of the construction sector. So I think that's great that we've got that kind of systems approach also to the skills side of it. What's been great about the Centre for Digital Build Britain is that everything that they have done has been in conjunction with government, industry and academia. So they haven't done anything in isolation, and also they haven't only focused on the technical elements. They've really strongly focused on the people, the sort of socio-technical side of it. And I think that's really important for the universities, because we need them to teach the skills that will actually be required. So it's really important that it's all done in partnership, rather than each of these bodies sort of looking at it from their own point of view and what they think would be best, as opposed to talking to the people who it's for. And the CDBB also did a piece of work on digital capabilities. So they've created a framework for early career professionals across the built environment, and it sort of goes through the different disciplines and the skills that will be required. But I just wanted to end really just by saying that, and I've said it a few times, I think other people have said it, is that it is really about every single person. And so we are talking about within organisations, every single organisation needs to go through a digital transformation if it's going to survive in the fourth industrial revolution. And what that really means is going back is just to each person having the right information to make the right decisions. So it's everything. It's the, your graduates. It's whoever it is in your organisation. They need to have the skills that they need to be able to do their role. And that's why we see the clients as quite critical as well, because they sort of sit. I showed that diagram with them being in a lever in the centre, and what they do rolls out to all of their supplier ecosystems. So I think it's really important as well that within organisations we've got upskilling going on.
Thank you, Melissa, for your reply. It clearly shows that we will not do without people. And that brings me back to Mirek. He's Deputy Dean of the Czech Technical University. What does Czech Technical University do in terms of engineering curricula, study programs, in terms of reskilling, upskilling of people, including employees of towns and municipalities? Well, we have accredited master's and doctoral program, Smart Cities. It's taught, both are taught in English. The master's program or master's program is a double degree in cooperation with Texas University, and we have first students in the US dealing with a project of smart border. They are creating a digital twin for smart borders. It's very important, very similar to railways, airports. In some countries, you know, borders are the bottleneck. Borders constitute the major problem. Borders of cities, I mean. So, yes, we do our best. We have many projects funded by the Czech Technology Agency. We cooperate with the city of Berlin. I've mentioned a project of a similar avenue. They test software applications there. And when it comes to PhD studies and reskilling, well, I'm not that optimistic. It's not a standard in the Czech Republic for universities to hold such courses, such study programs. Hopefully, in the future, we'll be able to have more projects of this type. You know, the Evropská Smart Avenue project is a pilot project. We can learn a lot from that, and we'll be able, hopefully, to move to larger projects. Thank you. I think this debate shows that there will have to be a major change if we want to stay successful in the future. As mentioned by Sarah, it's something that every city, every enterprise must go through. Digital transition is something that we all will have to go through, and there's only one opportunity to do that. What I like is the Center for Digital Build-up Britain, where there's which works in cooperation with Cambridge University. It is closely related to HR development, and my question for Sarah is as follows: how many people work there in the Center for Digital Build Britain? What is the annual budget of the center, and how does the Cambridge University participate, and other universities as well?
Okay, so I don't have the numbers on the budget and number of people working there, but what I can say is that the Centre for Digital Build Britain has been really effective in leading the digital transformation of the built environment, and it's been really effective at bringing people together and resources together. I think that's where the centre has really had impact in terms of providing that function of convening a very diverse industry. If you look at infrastructure, the built environment, you know, it spans many sectors, many different skills, types of people. You know, it touches everyone, all consumers. But I think what the centre has done effectively is really worked across the different stakeholder groups to bring them together to start to think about the benefits of digitalisation and digital transformation, and how to embark upon that journey together rather than in many separate ways. So I think the centre has had massive value there, also being supported by Cambridge University, so being able to tap into the expertise at Cambridge, I think has been really helpful. And other universities, you know, the connections certainly don't stop at Cambridge University, it's across all universities across the UK and internationally as well. So I think, you know, there is a model there that is useful for for other countries to follow, because I think that the function of being able to convene, connect and coordinate across many different sectors is an important function. And the question is always, who steps in to play that role? Where there are public benefits, who steps in to to ensure that we strive to achieve those public benefits rather than just private benefits? So with the Centre for Digital Built Britain, it completes its mission this stage here at the next week at the end of March. And many of the digital twin functions of the Centre for Digital Built Britain are passing over to Connected Places Catapult. Now, the Catapults, their purpose in the UK is to promote innovation. So they are publicly funded and they promote innovation. So in Connected Places Catapult is all about promoting innovation across cities and across places in the UK. So I think it's the right home to take forward the digital twin hub and Credo also. But it always raises that question about how to best convene and connect different organizations and coordinate, because as I've said before, there are many different initiatives in many different places. We need to share our learnings so that we all progress together rather than the idea of sort of competing in this space, I think has limited value. To really make progress here to tackle the big challenges like climate change, there's a real need for collaboration. And I think it's the organisations like the Centre for Digital Built Britain which can help promote that kind of collaboration. Thank you.
What you've said shows the potential of the coordination center, roofing, private sector, public sector, academia. I am familiar with the way your center works. There are some 20 resident employees, plus there are experts engaged in particular tasks, and it's very variable across all sorts of programs that the Centre for Digital Built Britain does. Now, Mirek, do you think that this example can be replicated in the Czech Republic? Would the Czech Technical University be willing to play such a role to, be the coordinator of the community? Well, I believe it can be replicated, and the Czech Technical University and the Institute of Robotics and Cybernetics should have that ambition, because it's one of the greatest digital hubs at the European level. The National Centre for Competence for Cybernetics and Artificial Intelligence. It does not involve only smart cities and smart Evropská Avenue. There are many other projects from Industry 4.0. There's lots of knowledge. The National Centre for Competence also has contacts in all Czech universities and the Czech Academy of Science. But what is important is the demand by the state, by the government, by public self-administration in terms of coordination. We are a university, we are a research institute, we are part of the whole ecosystem. We can't impact, we can't influence many other parts of that ecosystem, but it's definitely a huge opportunity and we are ready. Thank you, Mirek. It seems clear that the Czech Republic is about to make a strategic decision whether to stay in the mode of pilot projects, bottom-up initiative, or whether it will assume the opportunity, take the opportunity, and will give it a strong support. I think the yearly cost is not that high when compared to other spendings of the government. So hopefully we'll be able to set a model that would be functioning in the Czech Republic. Melissa, I was truly amazed by the collaboration framework with those responsible people and their meetings. It's a train that moves forward, bees flying in the same direction. Are cities and municipalities actively involved in the process? I know there are people from industry, but how about cities and smaller municipalities?
Yes, well, I would say that we could do better in this area. So in my presentation, there was a slide which showed the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the national level institutions, and then the projects at the bottom. And in the middle, I did say that that's where the cities sit, that's where communities sit, and local decisions sit. And I do think that is our weakest area, that we don't have kind of bodies and processes and vehicles and funding necessarily set up to take decisions about outcomes for people and nature at that level. But there's some movement in that direction. So in the Construction Leadership Council, I talked about there being the 4 areas. One of those areas is buildings and place, and it looks at the local social and commercial infrastructure. And it's done a lot of work around planning reform and the new UK Infrastructure Investment Bank. And then I also mentioned the Transforming Infrastructure Performance, and that has one of its focus areas is place-based regeneration and delivery. And so we are starting to look at making decisions around place. And I also wanted to give out a shout to the combined authorities in the UK. And I know that, for example, Tees Valley Combined Authority was really involved with the Transforming Such Performance, that place-based regeneration one. And those are where they've brought together authorities. And we've been talking about bringing together the wider business community and local partners. And they've been given responsibility by the government for things like transport infrastructure and skills and housing. And so I think we're starting to move in that direction, but I do think this is the area that needs the biggest input.
Melissa, thank you very much. It again touches on the topic of cities and municipalities, which are very important for fighting the climate change. And the COVID pandemic showed us the vulnerability of municipalities and cities. And this could help also when we need to manage potential future pandemics, which is another dimension which we haven't covered yet. What is interesting for me is also that municipalities have some idea about how they might operate in the new environment. In the Czech Republic, there are various associations that unite municipalities, but definitely for the future there will be a change to move this activity from industry also to municipalities. So the last question is for Mirek first. What could the Czech cities get as an inspiration from the Smart Evropská project? I think what they could learn is that you need to start by doing something, that you need to take first steps. You should not be afraid, just try to do something. You may try to do something on a small scale, but once you try to solve something, you start to understand where are issues, what you need to resolve, what people you need to collaborate with, etc. So I would not recommend starting with the entire city on a city scale, but I rather recommend taking a step-by-step approach and proceed in this way, learn on the way. This is my recommendation. Also, in every large city there is a university where they have some digital hub, so where they have skilled people, I say, so they can help you with that as well. And this is how we should start across the country with digitization, but definitely we will need to have some integrator. So what we like most is to have a system integrator, not at the level of concepts, but at the level of norms, procedures. So if we succeed, or if our government succeed to take care of that in the future, then we will not be able only to make small steps only, but also some bigger steps in the future. Thank you for mentioning the digital assistance centers. This shows that this is not something that should be addressed only by large cities or Prague, and even at the regional or local level, we need to create an ecosystem that will allow to spread knowledge, share knowledge about risks and opportunities. A question for Sarah: what is your experience? So what would be your experience about where to start with digital twins?
Jaké by bylo tvoje doporučení ohledně jak kde začít s digitálními dvojčaty?
So I would echo much of what has just been said. Start small, and I would say start with the problem. What is the problem that you want to solve? I wouldn't start by saying, oh, I want to create a digital twin of this city. That's just too big to start to grapple with. Start with what is the problem. So are we trying to plan an electric vehicle charging network? Are we trying to move a car park to a different place, or change the way cars flow around the city? You know, what is the problem? The smaller the better is probably the best way to start. And so define your use case. The digital twin is very much the starting point, and then you can add in complexity as you go, and you can identify the team. So building in the skills and the right people to develop that digital twin and engage with the users of the digital twin, and also set the vision for what you want to achieve with this digital twin with respect to the problem that you're trying to solve. And once you've set that vision, visualize it, show it to people. Like actually sort of, you know, what I talked earlier about the visualization we have with the maps help a lot, but I think you need to visualize it for people so they really see what they're working towards, so that when you're bringing together a team with diverse skills, they have a common idea of what the digital twin is aiming to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. You mentioned the vision. This is also where the UK started when they addressed digital infrastructure at the national level. They first define a vision. This is the phase, the stage where all people align when they share the same concept. And then you can start thinking about how do you want to achieve particular goals and what particular steps to take. So it will be different for every municipality depending on the issues they face, on the size of the issues they face. So I would just recommend to focus on the most urgent area where you have faced biggest issues and where also you can use the most opportunities. This means areas like city center, railway stations, etc. And then you can proceed. The last question to Melissa. We discussed the systemic approach and the use of cyber physical infrastructure. This is a new age. We are starting to think in new ways about infrastructure. What would be your recommendation how to approach this? I have a project from the town hall, a project from the sewage company. How should I approach this theoretically to make sure that in the future I will avoid some problems?
Yeah, my answer is going to be very similar to the ones we've already heard. It is about focusing on the outcomes and the stakeholders. So it's really important that you don't approach things from the technology side or from a sort of siloed project side. But also seeing how what you're doing is going to fit into that overall system of systems that we've talked about. And then what I've been saying about starting to build that place-based decision-making bodies and processes into it. But really importantly as well is getting that input from the people who are going to benefit from what it is that you're trying to achieve. And then just generally from a cyber-physical point of view, it's just managing your cyber-physical assets in the same way that you would your physical assets, and just understanding, I hope what's come through this morning is just the value of those cyber-physical assets.
Thank you for mentioning the locally based approach. This is a topic that we discussed last week. Thank you also for mentioning the importance of engaging people, engaging stakeholders, and the system-based approach is something for which you should ensure some leadership. And in the future, it will be something that we will need to be able to manage these black swans that we can expect in the future. And the municipalities should be ready for that. And if they are ready, we'll be able to cope with future shocks. Thank you. I would like now to pass the floor to Tomáš to recap about what we have been discussing here and give us some recommendations. Melissa and Sarah, thank you very much for a very inspiring presentation, for very inspiring debate. We received one comment, so I would like to mention it here. For you, we received this from Ladislav Malina, a person that we appreciate very much because he has experience from construction companies from around the world, so he sees the context in the Czech Republic, situation in the Czech Republic, also in international context. When we present information and experience from the UK here, we should also mention that the construction industry in the UK has some historic developments, so it exists in the UK context. The UK invested in modern pillars of the construction industry. They strengthened skills of people. They invested into better quality of institutions and in many other areas. So this, what I want to say is that our effort to transfer your experience means that we would like to help the people of the Czech Republic. I, with Petr, have been trying to change the environment in the Czech Republic for about 10 years. It is very difficult, I must admit, to start collaboration not only with the public sector but also with the private sector sometimes, but we are still trying. We try to get inspired and we offer also collaboration, and we will continue to offer it for the future. I'm very grateful for what our British colleagues shared with us, because they showed us the collaboration that we need to have within the industry, within the sector. It is good to hear that collaboration is possible. And for our audience, maybe you expected that we would show you some specific solutions, some specific technologies, or some specific use cases. We purposefully did not do that, because we believe this is not what is most important at the beginning. What is important is to step back and to think about the whys, not about the specific solutions. But this was already mentioned in the recommendations that we've heard. We should not digitalize because this is a trend and we are expected to do it, but because it is a tool that will allow us to better manage our cities and the environment in which we live. Digitalization should help municipalities and cities to operate, to function, and infrastructure is a system of systems. It was also mentioned here. Often we focus on individual systems in silos separately, such as water management, transport, and many other areas. What is also important is that we should focus on not individual systems, but the final result that we want to achieve. That means people, inhabitants, environment in which we live. In UK, they divide or classify the urban environment into built-up area, natural systems, and the digital area. And our purpose, our objective is to use at the maximum possible extent the environment in which we live, the urban environment. And thanks to urban digital technologies, we can better manage traffic, better manage all systems. And digital technologies, in fact, allow us to better manage the existing infrastructure instead of developing new infrastructure. We also need to have tools to implement digitization, and we also need to achieve some data unification. We also discussed digital twins. What is important is that digital twins kind of link the digital world with the physical world, and the purpose or the aim is again to do things more efficiently and better. And sometimes we have a lot of data, it is difficult to understand it, but definitely these data are interlinked, and digital twins help us to understand this data and the relationships involved. We also saw that digital twins can be used as a tool against climate change. We saw the Credo project, which focused on the power industry, water management and telecommunications, but the main purpose of this project was to strengthen resilience of a city against climatic change. The city infrastructure, of course, costs a lot of money. It will be put at a risk by climate change, potentially. Natural disasters can have major impacts and can be very costly, and ultimately they will have to be paid for by us from our own money. In the future, this means that many buildings will be difficult to get. For many buildings, it will be difficult to get insurance in the future against climate-related risks, and some buildings might not be able to get insurance coverage at all unless cities implement some measures. We also need to understand that Credo also maps risk related to floods, but in the future it will focus on many other risks. That means it will expand into other areas, and it will not focus only on the risk of flooding. So to conclude, we have these systems to be able to respond better, not only at the time when some natural disaster occurs, but also they allow us to model, to forecast, and to model what happens if we take certain measures. For us, it is important to have information and to understand the information correctly to make good decisions. Cities can model how resilient they are. They can prepare various scenarios, can determine how much individual scenarios would cost, and then they can base their decisions based on this exercise.
Prostě budeme ty prostředky dávat nikam jinam, to je nakonec na rozhodnutí toho vlastního města a obyvatel.
So, ladies, I would like to thank you very much. If maybe I would like to ask Petr just for a short comment, and Mirek, if they want to. Well, I would just like to say one small thing, and that is that developing this digital layer with which cities have some experience in the form of GIS systems, etc. If we develop this, then we will create high value for every owner in the city. This will mean for every owner of a piece of infrastructure, of a piece of property, that means they will get better access to insurance. The cities will be able to better manage the risks. So this is something that we definitely have to do, and we need to approach this not only at the level of municipality, but also as we should see the is something that will improve the competitiveness of our industry, because if we develop these systems, also the companies will be able to use these systems to test their products, and we can expect that in also other countries will be dealing with the same problems. And if we have some experience with building the digital infrastructure, building digital assets and using them to better protect our municipalities, then we can use this experience also in collaboration with other countries.
I think we've mentioned about everything. These times are the fourth industrial revolution in the cyber physical environment, in terms of all those opportunities in the industrial sector, in cities, in countries. What I can't manage, I can't control. And to be able to control systems of systems, I need to collect data, I need to create data, which is slightly more difficult, and I also must know how to generate knowledge from the data. And based on that, I can model, I can forecast. You know, this era is kind of difficult. High prices of energy, the climate change will definitely need all those tools, otherwise we'll not be able to control such difficult, complex, comprehensive systems. It's a revolution, and it's up to every country how to deal with that. And I hope the Czech Republic will be active and will take this opportunity, and we will get back to the top where it used to be. Thank you, gentlemen. Melissa, Zanocco, Sarah Hayes, thank you so much for being here. I hope it's not the last opportunity. Have a nice day. Thank you. I also would like to thank the audience. I hope we've inspired you. We'll continue debating in the future. There will be more panels. Hopefully in 2 months' time this discussion will continue. We'll go in detail. And those who are brave enough can return at 1 p.m. and we'll continue with municipal transport and mobility. There will be people from Milton Keynes, Professor Andrew McNaughton, Joe McDean. So all the presentations will be available at our website. Thank you once again. Have a nice day. Goodbye.